On the third day of Christmas, my yarn fairy brought to me 3 Scotch wools, 2 robin gloves and a pattern by Patons, please. So yarn fairy, you had fun with day 2's vintage knitting pattern choices. What treats will you bring us today? Well, the yarn fairy has been slightly more literal today and chosen patterns from the Scotch wool and hosiery store. Until that was in 1957 when it dropped the hosiery store part and simplified their brand name. But did you know the Scotch Wool Company became the same group as Paton and Coats in the 1960s? As you will see from the advertising on the back of this first pattern, this was a company based in Greenock, Scotland, spinning worsted wool, and they used to sell direct to the public. The Yarn Fairy has brought another 1940s pattern today from Scotch Wool and Hosiery Store Series Q number 8, and it's called the Ladies Jumper with a new yoke in super fingering 3-ply. Now if you're looking for vintage patterns up to the 60s, and searching for Scotch wool on reselling sites is a great place to start. Thank you Yarn Fairy, as this really is an interesting yoke, switching from ribbing to garter stitch. The second Scotch wool pattern, number 954, is a slipover pattern modelled here for boys to men, in chest sizes 24 to 46 inches. However, depending on your style and maybe size, this could be unisex too. It is a 1960s pattern, I believe, by the 9D price on the front. There is a plain version in stocking stitch or an 8-row pattern repeat on the man's sleeveless sweater, or vest as they're also called here. Thank you Yarn Fairy for including patterns for our male knitters, or for those men who are very much knit-worthy. The third Scotch wool shop pattern the Christmas Yarn Fairy has brought are 2 lacy jumpers, or maybe sweaters if you're based in the US. One has lovely cap sleeves and the other is sleeveless option, and definitely from the swinging 60s. Enjoy those bobs with the flick outs. Both of these tops have lovely dainty lace patterns on them, and their sizes for 32 to 40 inch busts in the 3-ply, and with the 4-ply you can go up to a 44 inch bust. The back is worked the same as the front, so it will also have that middle stripe as well, and they certainly have a pretty picot edging. As you've been such a great community this year, liking, commenting and subscribing, the Yarn Fairy decided to give you all a treat and to bring us an extra Patons pattern each day. So today the Yarn Fairy has brought us a twin set from Patons. I think the fairy must have been listening yesterday when we were talking about the Patons pattern for the fuller figure. If you haven't seen day 2, I'll put a link on the end screen. This is a 1940s pattern number 919, and it's a cardigan and short sleeve top for bust with a 40 to 44 inches. The jumper has a really attractive neck opening with a piping band and dart shaping. Thank you for showing us that a twin set for the fuller figure can be practical and flattering with beautiful details. That's a delight, Yarn Fairy. My Yarn Fairy and I would love to hear in the comments what you would wish the fairy would bring. Maybe it will come true. I'm the Knitting Patternista, and I collect vintage knitting and crochet patterns to use, and you're welcome to join me on this wonderful adventure. I would love it if you subscribe, Patternista, so you don't miss the next episode of the 12 Days of Christmas, and more vintage knitting pattern fun, of course. And if you missed the first 2 days of the Vintage Knitting Christmas, you can click the link for day 2 here. Tune in tomorrow to see what the Christmas Yarn Fairy will bring us on this 12 Days of Christmas adventure. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and happy knitting!